Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about dealing with the elephant in the room and dealing with other unforeseen circumstances. For example, hecklers. Now when we talk about the elephant in the room, I'm talking about things like if somebody drops something or somebody's telephone rings. If you're giving a speech and somebody drops a plate of food or drinks and you completely ignore it, that's going to be really awkward for the audience because they're going to be like, did he not notice that? So that's the elephant in the room. You need to acknowledge that you're aware that that just happened. So if somebody drops something, you could say a stock line like, hey, just set that anywhere. And you'll get maybe a little bit of a laugh, but then the audience will allow you to just move on and you don't get stuck, in that weird awkwardness like, what's that noise happening right now? Another example is, for me, I'm bald, right? I shave my head. So nowadays it's not really that big of a deal because lots of guys shave their head, so it's pretty common. But I still like to say something about it. So I make a joke about it. And usually I'll do some kind of mentalism or mind reading thing. Or I'm doing a magic trick, a better example. A magic trick where it seems obvious how it works. And then at the end I twist it and I still try to surprise the audience. But after I do it and the audience is thinking, we know what you did, I like to say, hey, I know what you guys are thinking right now. Where's his hair? And it gets a good laugh and it allows the audience to go, okay, he knows he's bald. He knows that we know he's bald. And they stop thinking about that. But if it's something else, like let's say I have a friend who used to weigh almost 450 pounds and he's a speaker. Right? A corporate speaker. He would come out and talk to people and he had to acknowledge that he's a big guy because if he doesn't say it, the audience is just thinking, oh my gosh, that guy's huge, right? So he would just take that away. And what he would do, for example, let me grab something here, he would use magic in his presentations, right? So he would show them something with some cards and he would use big cards like this. And then the joke was something along the lines where, most people would do this with smaller cards, but I want you guys to see everything in proportion, acknowledging that, yeah, he's a bigger guy, so he uses bigger cards. It makes him look smaller. And as soon as he says that, it goes away. They don't sit there and think anymore, wow, he's a big guy. They can move on and actually listen to what he has to say. All right, so dealing with things that happen that you're not ready for. You can't be ready for everything, right? So things are going to happen when you're giving your speech or your performance or your presentation that you did not plan. For example, somebody's telephone rings or somebody just is talking in the middle of your presentation. What do? Well, it helps to be prepared. So this entire video is about having a handful of lines in your back pocket that'll help you deal with those type of situations. If you're going to be doing stand-up comedy, then you need to have some heckler comebacks because more than likely you're going to get heckled every now and again. Some people get heckled all the time. And if you don't put the heckler in their place, then it's going to keep coming and you're going to lose that battle. So you need to have a couple of lines that you can just throw out and shut those people down and then finish with your presentation. And even if you're not going into comedy, it still is very useful to have a few of these lines in your back pocket. Because when something happens, you're going to be stunned if you're not prepared. So something happens, the fire alarm goes off, and you're just going to be like, oh my God, what do I do now? And the audience is going to be looking to you because you're the guy on stage to be the leader of that situation. So you need to know what to do. You need to have a plan for as many scenarios as possible in your back pocket. And you probably won't need most of them, but when the moment arises where you have to use one of those lines, you're going to be really happy that you did. And the audience is going to be like, wow, that guy's quick on his feet. Even though you're not necessarily quick on your feet, you were prepared. Now, when I started out doing comedy clubs, this was a long time ago, I would go up and I wasn't doing just stand-up comedy. I was doing comedy magic, right? So the audience looks at you in a totally different way. And when I started out, it felt like everybody felt free to heckle me, oh, let's heckle Magic Boy. And that, I was mortified by the thought of that. I didn't know what to do about hecklers because I was just starting out. So you walk up on stage and you're thinking, oh my God, I hope that they don't heckle me, because if they do, at the time I was thinking, man, I hope that I come up with a funny line, to come back to whatever they said. And here's the thing, I didn't have those lines prepared. And what happened was I got heckled all the time. So I decided that I was going to combat that. You start hanging out with other comics and they tell you, you don't have to think of it on the fly. You should have this stuff prepared. Now, there's going to be times where, sure, you think of something amazing on the fly, and that becomes your new go-to thing whenever somebody says that or something like that happens. But until then, you need to have like an arsenal of things that you can use. And what's funny about it is, at least for me and a lot of other comedians and entertainers that I know, when you start out, you're afraid of hecklers. And that's when you get heckled. But for some reason, once you have this arsenal, once you're ready for a heckler or ready for a weird situation to happen, you're prepared. If this happens, this is what I'm going to say. Once you're prepared, those things never happen. If you ever come see one of my shows, I almost never get heckled. There's usually one or two times where somebody might yell something out, but I have a line, I say the line, and then from then on, nobody talks. And the number one thing to keep in mind is, even though you have these lines, I'm about to give you a whole bunch of them, but even though you have these lines, you don't have to use them right away. Usually what I do, if I'm giving a presentation or doing a show and somebody yells something out that is inappropriate, not rude, but just they yell something out and it doesn't help my presentation in any way, step one, ignore those people and just keep going on with your show. 9 times out of 10, they're going to do it once and realize that you don't give a crap about them, and they'll stop. So they say something, you just ignore them and keep going on with your show. If you have to, you can give them a look. Just look at them. You can stop talking and look at them. Like a school teacher, wherever there's commotion going on or say people are talking, you just lower your mic and you walk over to them and you look at them. And as soon as they get quiet, then you start talking again. And that's going to train them. Okay, we're interrupting this guy. But there are all other cases, if those people keep on talking or somebody yells something out or something strange happens, here's some stock lines. And by stock, I mean these are lines that I've used. I've heard lots of other people use these. I didn't write most of these. Maybe I wrote 1 or 2. I can't even remember. But these are just lines that I've collected over years of doing speaking, comedy clubs, cruise ships, you name it. And generally speaking, I only tend to use maybe 3 or 4 of these. I have my favorites. And I'm going to share my favorite lines only with the people who are in the Crush Stage Fright video course. For the YouTube version, you'll have to go to www.crushstagefright.com and sign up for the video course in order to see my favorites. But nonetheless, the ones I'm going to share with you here, they're very useful. And here's the thing, a lot of these lines I've only used once, because I study them. You study them for, a couple days, you get it in your mind, you imagine that the situation happens while you're speaking, and you imagine saying this line. And now you might not really remember it, but it's in the back of your head. So now when this situation happens, you're going to go, I know just what to say. And you say it, and generally speaking, most of these lines, you're going to get a laugh, and the audience is going to give you credit for being a very quick thinker, and that's just going to make you look even better. Before I deliver the lines, I want you to keep in mind that some of these jokes wouldn't be tasteful in certain situations. There are a lot of lines here that I would never use at a corporate event, but I might only use them on a cruise ship or at a comedy club. And some of the lines also, you're not going to want to use these unless they fit your character. Because if you come across as a very, very serious person, and then you do one of the lines, for example, a line that I like to use in my show, and my character is very friendly, very audience friendly. And the audience, I think, gets a feeling that I would never do anything to hurt or insult anyone. And then on a cruise ship at least, people bring their babies often. So I will be doing my show, and all of a sudden in the back of the theater, sometimes in the front, you'll hear a baby go, "Wah." And I will just stop what I'm doing and go, "Shut up, baby." And it gets a huge laugh because it's so unexpected from my character. And as soon as I say it, I smile. So the audience understands it was a joke. I'm not really telling the baby to shut up. So if you are dead serious all the time and you weren't doing like a friendly character and doing a humorous presentation and you told a baby to shut up, you might lose your audience. So be careful on how you use these lines. So let's get started. All right, the first one is something that happens all the time, whether you're doing a comedy club, you're doing a presentation for a company, you're speaking at a boardroom meeting. This happens all the time. You're in the middle of your presentation and somebody forgot to turn the ringer off on their cell phone. So you're talking, ring, ring, ring. You stop, you look at the person, you look at the audience and you say, "Every time I hear one of those phones, it's ringing." Now that's the kind of line where after you say it, you need to count to 4 in your head because they're not going to get it right away. But if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, you'll start to hear the laughs and they'll get the joke. Because at first they're like, "What does he mean? Of course it's a phone, it's ringing." And then they say, "Well, that's the only sound a phone can make." And they get it. So that's one. The other option, and this is one I would only do at a comedy club, is say, hey buddy, why don't you stick that in your pocket and put it on vibrate for your own personal pleasure. Something like that. Don't do that at a corporate event. You probably get sent home. This one is just for magicians. So you have a prop, you do a trick. After the trick, somebody yells out, "Hey, can I have that? Can I examine that?" And what if it's a prop that they cannot examine? What do you say? Well, my typical response would be, "Of course you can. I'll show it to you tomorrow." And tomorrow, you'll be gone. So then the audience gets it and they laugh. And I've never had anybody come up and go, "Oh, that was a tricky prop, wasn't it?" They just think that you're being funny and you don't want to give the guy the prop. Okay, here's an easy one if somebody is talking while you're delivering your presentation. Just look at the guy and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean to interrupt the beginning of your sentence with the middle of mine." Here's a stock line if you say something that gets a groan from the audience. Just say, "Hey, come on guys, ease up. Eat a bran muffin and let it flow." Here's one that actually comes in pretty handy. So you're on stage and you're speaking, and for some reason, somebody just decides that they're going to walk right in front of you. This happens all the time, especially if there are kids there, but this even happens with adults. They go to the bathroom and they come in the wrong side of the room and their seat's way over here, so they go right in front of you. And you just look at them, stop what you're doing, watch them go across and say, "Don't worry, folks, it's just a stage he's going through." All right, here's another one if you're talking to mostly adults, but there happen for some reason to be kids there. And the kids are acting up and not behaving the way you would like them to. The first one, it's a 4-step thing. The first thing is you just, like we did with the baby, you just go, "Shut up, kid," or "Shut up, kids." Saying that tongue in cheek. Don't say it for real, or the audience will not like you because people like kids. After you tell them to shut up, you're going to say, "Oh, no, I'm kidding. I actually love kids. Could never eat a whole one, though." Part 3. And you say, "No, seriously, I do love kids. I actually saved a kid from drowning in the pool the other day. True story. I took my foot off of his head." Part 4. Apologize again. No, it's okay. I love children. I actually have the heart of a child. It's at home in a jar. Be careful with those because people are sensitive to kid jokes. You have to have the right character to pull that off. All right, whether you're entertaining or speaking, people are going to get up and use the restroom. So this is something, if this suits you, I've never done it, but I've seen a few people do it and it's pretty funny where, when you go to a gas station and you ask to use the restroom and they give you a key and it's attached to something. Well, when someone gets up to leave, you just say, "Oh, excuse me, where are you going?" And if they say to the bathroom, you say, "Oh, wait, you need a key," and you grab a key and you have it attached to something like really big and outrageous. I don't know, use your imagination, but the bigger and more dangly and silly it is, the more laugh you're gonna get. All right, this is for if you say something that you would think the audience would be very impressed with or enlightened with. So the line, but they don't react. So you say, which is so impressive or so amazing that sometimes the audience forgets to applaud. And then you pause and look around and they will applaud. You're kind of begging for it there, but it works. Here's one. If you happen to do any type of mentalism or mind reading, which it's just a gag, but I think it's funny, especially if you're a single guy. So you choose a lady or guy, whatever you're into, and you say, have we ever met before? They'll say no, and I'll say, okay, just think of your phone number. And you write something down, put the pen away, fold up the paper, and say, thanks, I'll call you later. You didn't really get the number, but it's a funny joke. Here's another one if somebody is talking while you're talking. And this is a very common one, but it works, and the audience thinks it's funny. So you just say, excuse me, sir, when I was writing this speech, I don't remember you having so many speaking parts. All right, here's a really old one, but it still works. If somebody is acting out of control, they just keep talking or they just keep doing something that's annoying, just say, hey, it's okay, folks. I acted the same way the first time I ever tried beer. Here's another really, really old one that's been overdone a million times, but every time I've seen somebody do it, the audience thinks it's hilarious. So you might want to do it. I wouldn't do it. It's a little bit too old, it's overdone, but it can be funny. So you're up there, you're giving your speech, you're doing your show, whatever it is, and somebody keeps interrupting you, heckling, doing whatever, throwing tomatoes. And you say, hey, look, I'm trying to work up here. I don't come to your job at McDonald's and pull the spatula out of your hand when you're working. All right, this one is kind of brutal. So you'd only want to do it if the person is really getting on your nerves, and not only on your nerves, but you can tell that that person is getting on the audience's nerves as well. Just look at them and go, hey, can I ask you a question? Were your parents siblings? All right, here's a good one that's not too offensive. But so if somebody's bugging you, or you brought somebody up for a demonstration of some kind, and it's not working out, they're not listening to what you're asking them to do, and you just say, hey, look, have you ever helped a speaker before? And they'll say yes or no, and you say, well, because you're not helping one now. Here's a really mean one. Sir, learn from your parents' mistakes. Use birth control. I like this one. Did your parents ever ask you to run away from home? I think this guy's missing a few buttons on his remote control. You're not the brightest light bulb on the Christmas tree, are you? Dude, your mouth's in gear, but your brain's in neutral. I feel like he's swimming in the shallow end of the gene pool. When you were drinking from the fountain of knowledge, you didn't swallow, did you? All right, here's a fun one, but you got to be careful where you do it. If you have somebody on stage for any reason and they happen to put their hands in your pocket, you just say, sir, hands out of your pocket, I'll do the entertaining here. And if he does it again, the follow-up to that is, sir, hands, pockets, come on, God sees everything. This is for a group of people talking. Hey, where'd you guys learn how to whisper in a helicopter? Here's a nice line, especially if you are doing comedy and somebody in the audience yells out something that actually happens to be really funny. And the audience laughs. And you laugh too, and then you go, hey man, don't be funnier than me. That tends to get another laugh on top of their laugh. Do you have a favorite stock comeback line or a line for when something crazy happens during a presentation? If so, share it in the comments or post it on our private Facebook group. I would love to check it out, and everybody else can learn from you. Thank you so much.